Okay, good morning, or actually good afternoon. Shawn here with Accelerators Organization. Time for another mentor session. Okay, let's get this thing going and get the questions started. The first question comes from Ricardo, and Ricardo says, how do I go through the interview process of hiring? Is it okay to interview outside the business? The background is, how should I structure an interview so I'm clear about the expectations? Should I build certain questions and stick to the same ones every interview? I'm looking to improve my process in any way possible. Thank you for any insight. Okay, I've got about 7 different mentors answering this for you, Ricardo. And I have to say, I'm not the most high-level expert interviewer. It's not something I do on a daily basis. So normally before I start an interview, I prepare. And I've actually put all the resources that I have used in the past in the AO portal in the resource center. It's in the hiring section. So I put everything there that I use. I prepare the questions that I want to ask and I take notes. And that way when I go into the interview, once I get past the traditional rapport building questions, I then get into the questions that are pertinent about the job. And so off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to give you those questions that you would ask, but think about the things that are important for you to determine if somebody has the qualifications and the personality that you are looking for when it relates to the position that you're hiring for. And yes, I like to be prepared when I go into those interviews. Also, in the AO portal, in the resource center, there is a section, a category called O'Connor Group. Marcia, one of your mentors, who I'm going to get to answer this for you, she gave us about 7 or 8 different documents that are really important as it relates to hiring. There's like an employee handbook information, there's legal information, so make sure you go through all that information in the portal in the O'Connor Group as well, because Marcia has been gracious enough to give us those things because she's an HR professional. And I'm definitely going to get her to answer this question for you. As far as interviewing outside the place of business, I think that's fine as long as it's a public place. Coffee shop is fine, a hotel lobby is fine. Make sure it's in a public place. So yeah, I think in public is fine. In your car, no. You know, at your house, I'd be really careful. I'd make sure that there's other people there with you if you can. So yes, outside the business is fine as long as it's in a professional setting. Okay? All right, the next question comes from Liliana. And Liliana says, should I take out another loan to fund the new location, setup, and equipment? The background is I'm opening a new location to move from our current pet grooming salon. Our current location has building maintenance issues and can no longer suit our client volume. The new location's monthly lease rate is triple what I'm paying now. It has been very difficult finding a location that even allows pet grooming. Okay, I've got about 8 different mentors answering this one for you, Liliana. And I know I had asked you to wait until we had our onboarding call first, but thought I'd go ahead and get this answered for you, get it kicked off right away. Whenever I'm going to make a decision that's financial like that, especially if you're going to sign a long-term financial lease, is I want to run projections and take a look at how this is going to affect my profit and loss statement. If you are making X amount of dollars in profit right now based on the lease that you're paying at the current place, obviously, if you increase your expenses, that's going to have a direct one-to-one relationship on the effect of you paying more. So I want to weigh that with how much more income can I increase because of the new space, and is it something that I might need to raise my rates? So there are some things you could think about, raising your rates. If you have not raised your rates in a while, traditionally speaking, and you might want to talk to Heather, who's one of our mentors, and she has a pet grooming facility, and you guys may know each other, but she's been through this as far as affecting rates, and I don't think she had a huge cancellation rate of people that canceled simply because she raised her rates. Most of us just mentally are concerned about raising our rates, but when you raise them, people usually don't have an issue. All right, hope that helps. But like I said, I always like to run the numbers when making financial decisions like this. If you need help running those numbers, you could hire one of our coaches in our group. His name is Dan Abate. He is an expert at spreadsheets and things like that. and could work with you on that, okay? Hope that helps. Okay, the next question comes from Joe Nugent, and Joe says, when is it appropriate and timely to add additional services to my business? The background is I own a home inspection company in Naples, Florida. My goal is to be at 20 to 35 inspections per week. We are not there consistently yet. I have an inspector who works for me and is doing great, so operationally, I believe I'm set up for success. I'm just worried I may be jumping the gun and need to focus more on sales and bringing in more inspections, but the revenue loss by subbing mold inspections out and what I could add to my bottom line is bringing it in-house is pretty large. Okay, love increasing services. Joe, love you, man, but you are always so slow to move. Hire another inspector and get out there and do the mold inspections. Yes, grow. As long as you think that there is a larger ongoing opportunity for mold inspections, this isn't just like a few here and a few there. If it's a good line of service that you can provide, I would absolutely go get certified, whatever you need to do, and add that service and get another inspector. We already talked about this in your business. You should be in the hiring phase. You need at least 3 inspectors, 1 full-time marketing person, 1 full-time administrative person, the mold person. Yes, and yes, you are ready to get out there and do it. Okay, I got a bunch of mentors answering that for you, but they're all going to say the same thing. Okay, the next question comes from Douglas, and Douglas says, how to set up a courier system with cash. The background is I run a medical supply business where we buy unused product from the end user and get it back into the hands of pharmacies, hospitals, and wholesalers who get into the hands of diabetics in need. Locally, I purchase these items cash from the customers, which leaves me doing a lot of the pickups instead of working on my business because I can't figure out how to hire and trust people to handle cash. Have already dealt with 2 different types of theft issues surrounding this, but if I could solve this chokehold, I could easily increase my revenue by $200,000 in a single year. I've got about 7 other mentors answering this for you. I know that there are security companies that can do cash pickups. I don't know if they could do it for small transactions like you're doing. You might also look at that if you're buying stuff, could they come to you and come to an office? Is there any other payment method you could do, PayPal, Venmo, or anything to make it electronic? I certainly hear you on this. I just couldn't imagine not being able to find 1 or 2 people that I could trust with cash that would represent me and my business. So maybe your hiring practices could use a little help. Maybe it's finding a family member who you really trust. The bottom line is that you should know each and every day whether or not somebody's stealing from you. If you say, hey, here's $500 out of petty cash, go do this, or even $20,000, well, I probably wouldn't let somebody do that much. I don't know. I just think that there's got to be some safe way to do it, that you can find trustworthy people. But if you can't use a professional services company, I would look at using drop-off locations. You know, when people need cash, they sure do find a way to get to the place to exchange their goods for cash. So maybe people come to you instead of you going to them. Maybe you reimburse for transportation, something. I would just get creative. Or they ship it to you and then you send them back a check maybe. Cash is just going away, and I know in lower income neighborhoods, cash is still a big deal, but I would search for any and every other way, which I'm sure you are. I'm anxious to see what solution you come up with this on, but those are the only things I can think of. I've got a bunch of other mentors answering this for you. Maybe they have some ideas, okay? All right, next question. I'm going to my glasses for this one. The next question comes from Alex, and Alex says, do you think me paying myself less than everyone else on my team is smart? The background is I have a hardscape and landscape business. I'm starting to grow. I'm making everything 100% legit. I don't need a ton of money out of the business. I got pretty much everything I need in life. I was going to pay myself $15 an hour and leave the rest in the business account so I can keep the ship sailing. Does that make sense, or should I pay myself more? I reverse engineered it. If I pay myself $15 an hour, I should be able to save $1,000 a month in my personal bank account. The business account can grow rapidly. Thank you for all your time. All right, I got a bunch of other mentors answering this one for you, Alex, because I like this question. It's one that we've gotten a couple times, and I'd love to get the perspective of a bunch of different mentors for you. So I'll just give you my answers. I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I'll tell you how I handled this. I figured out what my monthly expenses were personally. And as long as I was bringing in enough money from my business in the form of a paycheck to pay my monthly expenses, I didn't mind keeping the rest in the business and using that money to grow the business, usually in the form of more equipment or more employees. If there ever was just a massive surplus, if there just got to be an extra $50,000, $100,000 in the business checking account, then I might go ahead and just cut myself a check and use that as income and just, cut me a check for $10,000. Unless you have some business need that the money needs to be in your business, I want to get it over to me personally because I'm going to pay. That's the best way to pay tax instead of doing a dividend or getting double taxed in the company. Get with your accountant to be able to ask these questions to make sure that you are leveraging every bit of tax write-off that you can. But that's what I did, is as long as in the beginning days, I was putting as much money back in the business as I could, and I just took enough that I needed to live off of. I don't think it matters whether or not you're making more or less than your employees or your team. They don't know how much you're making. They know how much they're making. That's how I would handle it. Okay? Hope that helps, man. Okay, the next question. Put my glasses on. The next question comes from Allison. And Allison says, how do you go about hiring the right people for your team? The background is I own a digital marketing agency, and I recently hired a project manager for my team. He started off great and was super motivated and was contributing a lot to the team. Over time, I realized his personality didn't mesh well with the team. He was constantly questioning why we did things rather than completing tasks, and would try to find ways that he could pass his tasks back to me or someone on our team so he wouldn't have to complete them himself. After talking to him several times with no changes made on his end, I realized that I made a terrible hiring mistake and let him go the other day. I felt like he had used a lot of my time and didn't contribute much to moving our business forward. How do I avoid this same hiring mistake in the future? Thank you for your time and expertise. Got a bunch of other mentors answering this for you, Allison. Allison, you've been a tough cookie, but I'm glad that you're asking questions in the portal again. But these are the types of things that we talk about and go into big detail in leadership events. We've got a leadership event April 29th coming on. There's about 15, 16 members coming. They're even bringing their second in command, and we're going to talk about all things team building, management, leadership, hiring, all that stuff. The cost, think about the cost of you losing that person because you didn't hire the right person or maybe manage them on an ongoing basis. They say that it can cost upwards of 50 to 100% of that person's annual income in lost productivity, the cost to replace them, train somebody new, all of that, between all the time lost and actual money. And that's why it's so important to continually be brushing up on our leadership skills, our ongoing team meetings, company culture, all those types of things. So I urge you to see if you can get to some of these workshops, because this is exactly what we do. There's only so much you're going to learn by reading a book or reading some articles, because sometimes you need to role play these things. And that's where getting it together with a bunch of high-level consultants for a weekend workshop, you can get a really good amount of information on knowing how to handle things like this so that you can save yourself the time, the expense, and the aggravation. So with that said, hiring and people management is always the number one problem in any business. And that's why as CEOs and as business owners, our time has to at some point get out of doing the work and then mastering the art of building the people that help us build the company. Couple things. One, all has to do with core values. If you don't have a written down set of 6 to 8 core values, I would urge you to get them. They're in the brand strategy document or in the branding section of the AO portal in the resource center. There's a bunch of documents on how to do core values. Brand strategy has something in there, and I think there's some other documents as well. By establishing your core values, you can use those when you're going to hire somebody. For instance, one of the core values might be that we're going to over exceed expectations, not only within the team, but for our customers or clients. That way, when your person decides to act the way that your guy did, you say, hey, John, when I hired you, I told you that one of our core values was X. You actually signed saying that you believe in these core values. I noticed that you did this, which goes against our core value. Is something going on? Is everything okay? You know, what you're going to find out is a lot of times people will lie in an interview just to get a job, and then they might show their true personality once you hire them. And that's why it's really important to use core values, understand what kind of questions you're going to ask to try to get the person to give the truth. I also like, in a small business environment, I like to put everybody that I hire on a 90-day hiring probation and give them an incentive that if they last past the 90 days and I actually turn them into an employee, that I will give them an additional bonus because now I really want to invest in this person, give them an incentive. But in the AO Resource Center, in the portal, there are two sections that I would pay particular attention to. Hiring, read all of the articles and resources in the hiring category, and then also the O'Connor group. And then it's really important not only to know how to hire the right person, but we've got to set up really good onboarding so we can set them up for success within their role. Then we have to manage them on an ongoing basis. And there are ways to do this with daily huddles, weekly meetings, performance reviews, feedback from the team, all kinds of things that we can do to make the process of people management better for our companies. And these are you get a lot of this information in the Resource Center, a lot of this information in the weekend events that we do as it relates to team building and leadership. I would highly urge you to come to some of these events, because these are the people that you're seeing in the organization, like Nick and Heather and Todd and Zach and many others. The reason that they have gone on to build $1 million businesses because they came to events and they really invested in their leadership to be able to grow their company and hire the right people. That's really the number one thing. They had a great product, they learned how to sell that, but they knew that in order to grow, they had to build a team. And they have all attended many of the workshops, and the result is speaking for itself. They grew their companies, and they did that because they learned how to build teams. All right, so come to some events. We would love to see you. I hope that answers your question. That's it for today's mentor session. There was only 6 questions, so real quick one today. If you want to ask a question, just go into the portal, ask a question. As soon as there's 6 questions in the queue, I do a mentor session and answer them, and I get the ball rolling and get it to the other mentors, all right? I will see you on the next mentor session. Hope you have a great day, morning, or night, wherever you are in the world, and peace out. Most won't. I will.